Hi guys, it's Blackie. Okay, today we're going to deal with cleaning out some old gear. Canteens. Now aluminum and steel canteens up through World War II and etc. were very common. But the problem with aluminum canteens and steel canteens is they can over time oxidize and get kind of funky. Okay? Now this is an old antique Boy Scout canteen. And I cleaned it up a couple of years ago. And I used it for a while and then I put it in storage. And when I pulled it out this time, I found out it had oxidized real bad. And when I unscrewed the lid, it was just white. I mean just white. And the threads, everything was just white. Down inside, the neck right there was just white. And so it needs a good scrubbing. So how you going to clean that canteen like that? Well, I need to knock loose any surface oxidation on the inside. And so how I'm going to do that is going to be really hot water and BBs. Now let's talk about the BBs for a second. Most, if not all, of your BBs you go to the store and get to go in your kid's BB gun are steel BBs, but it's a coating on them. And you've got some that are black coated, the vast majority are copper coated, and then you have these like this by Daisy, which are zinc coated. Why do they coat them? So they don't rust. Remember, it's got to be shot through a barrel and be fairly accurate. So it needs to be something that doesn't rust easy, because your kid's going to be carrying it out to the woods and etc. and you don't want it to rust and make just a blob. And so they coat them for that reason. I don't recommend using the copper BBs because copper is softer than zinc. And what I'm going to be doing is putting these BBs inside of this, and then with that water swishing it around and letting those BBs rolling around and beating and banging knock any and all corrosion loose on the inside of that canteen. And in doing so, I want to make sure that I don't end up with copper stuck in there, because copper is softer than zinc. So I'm going to use the zinc BBs. Now you can get steel BBs. It's the exact same thing, it's just got a coating of some kind on it, because a uncoated steel BB rusts. And that don't work well to go down the bore of a BB gun. It gets jammed in there because it's not truly round anymore, and it's in the gun, and the kid takes it out and plays with it and leaves it out in the rain, and 2 days later he picks it up and pulls the trigger and it's rusted and it's stuck in place, and you're going to be upset. So they coat them to try to give them a longer lifespan. So we're going to be using zinc coated premium grade BBs. Precision Max 2400, just a couple bucks at Walmart. Now as you saw, I went ahead and put the water on to get it good and hot. And it's going to take it a couple minutes. I don't need boiling water. I do need really warm water though, because I want it to soften and expand and get rid of any problems. Now that's going to be hot, ain't it, when I pour them in there? So I'm going to need a pair of gloves. So go ahead and have your gloves ready. Now, here's going to be the procedure. We're going to put most of this into that canteen. Luckily, this one has a great big pour spout on it right there, so I can easily pour them in there. So I'll show you that in just a second. And then once I get them in there, I'm going to give it a little dry roll around. Okay? Then I'm going to let my water get good and hot, and I'm going to put my water in there. And then I'm going to screw the lid on, and I'm going to sit there and swish it. I want the BBs rolling in a circle like this with that water. I'll turn the canteen upside down, because it's, looking at it, it's got a dome top, it's got a depressed bottom. So I want to roll it around like this. Take it and swish, 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 rotate. Swish, 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 rotate. Swish, swish, swish is going to be the procedure, going all the way around it. I'm going to turn it upside down, do the same thing. Do this, make sure I covered this center section. You know, then I'm going to do it so the neck opening gets a good knock loose and etc. And once I've gone all the way around this, I'm going to pour the water out using my hand excuse me, I'm going to pour the water out and not get burned if it's still hot. I'm going to pour the water out, keeping the BBs in there, and I'm going to top it back up with fresh tap water, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it like 3 times like that. And then when I get done with that, I'm going to dump out my BBs, save my BBs. And then I'm going to fill the canteen solid full of water. Now, when I get home, how am I going to treat this? Well, I'm going to take my canteen and I'm going to put those water purification tabs. I'm going to put a water purification tab in it. I'm going to fill it all the way to the top. I'm going to put the lid onto it and shake it real good and set it up. And that's how I'm going to store it. Oh, but Blackie, it's water purification. If there's anything alive in there, bacteria, whatever, that water purification should kill it, right? So it should be sterile and there's no oxygen because I filled it all the way to the top. So now this is going to be sitting on the shelf for the next 6 months, 8 months, a year. Unless it's something I'm using every couple of days, in which case I don't need to do this, right? But on the other hand, now I pull it off the shelf and it's been in storage for a year. I take the cap off, I go to the sink, I pour all of that water out, then I fill it full of hot tap water and I swish it up really, really good, and I pour that water out, and then I fill it back up regular cold tap water, and that's how I'll take it to the field and use it. When I get home, now I've been using it for the weekend or whatever, I will fill it full of warm tap water, swish it around real good. I will then put one of those water purification tabs into it, whatever the recommended package is for a quart. I will fill it all the way to the top with warm water. I will screw the lid back on. I will then let it cool down to the touch and then I'll put it up in storage. That's how I store my canteens. Well, how about steel U.S. Army canteens from World War II? Same exact procedure. Plastic canteens, I will usually just clean them in the sink, but you can do this BB trick with them as well, especially when it's been sitting up a while. Now, for those of you that may, like me, I've done it in the past, wanted something to flavor your water, and so you've just dropped in a little bit of Kool-Aid or something to make the water not just taste so bland. You can do that, but when you get home, you've got to thoroughly clean that canteen out, and plastic canteens can't be put in boiling water. So you've got to take it, and I put a good douse of soap in it, and I fill it about halfway full, and I give it a good hard surgitation, and then I leave it sitting on the counter. Say, do this before dinner. And then when I'm done with dinner, I will give it a good hard surgitation again and rinse it very thoroughly. And then I will use the water purification tab into it and fill it all the way to the top like we talked about, so there's no air in there. Okay? And that's how I've run canteens for 40 years. How do I store them? Full. Now people are going to tell you, and that's it. There are 2 sides to this, okay? If it's completely dry inside, there's no danger of any kind of bacteria or algae or anything else. To a point, you're correct. But there's oxidation that can occur with any kind of metal, aluminum or steel, or even stainless, over time. So that's the reason I choose to put the water in it. And the fact I purified that water by putting it into that position should keep anything scummy from coming out of it. Now if I say I pull this canteen off the shelf and it's been there 5 years, I haven't used it, I'll take a clear glass and I'll pour the water into it. See if the water's still crystal clear. If any kind of black stuff, particulate matter, whatever comes out of it, I go right back to this procedure again and scrub it out. It's just a way to keep it rolling. Usually if I've got the canteens I'm using a lot, they never get a chance to go scummy because I'm using them so much. But those of you who know me know I carry Nalgene, sorry my southern tongue can't say it, canteen, because it can take that kind of hot water and it's clear. I can look in it and see. But when you've got a solid canteen, is there something funky in that bottom corner you don't know or not? So that's the reason I store it full. If it is going to turn funky for whatever reason, when I pour it out, I want to see it and know there's a problem. Because if it's dry and some sort of mold did grow in that bottom corner and now I dump water in it, It might sit there and be okay for a little bit, but it's becoming un-okay as that saturation occurs. And by tomorrow when I go take a drink out of it, I get problems. I don't want to do that. And so I avoid at all costs having to do that. Now, let's put the BBs in here and let's get started. Now the best technique I have found is to kind of cup your hand around it and use the hand kind of like a funnel. Don't worry, you're going to mess up and spill some out. That's good. Now, screw the lid on. Let it roll and scour it out. This technique is getting that rim all the way around. Now turn it over. Go through the middle real good. I'm slowly tipping forward and back as I'm going back and forth. Okay, now putting it some of the BBs to the bottom. My water is nice and warm now. I'll put my water in. The BBs are the scouring medium and the water is the carrying medium. The BBs roll over it, knock it loose, break it loose from all them little nooks and crannies and get them to come out. Alright, that's overflowed at the top. I'll let that sit there just a minute. Meanwhile, I'm going to put out my stove. Just like that. Yep. Time for gloves. Of course, be careful, don't burn yourself. Now I'm going to pour off about that much. And I'm going to put my cap on. Snugger down good. Start the agitation. How long? Oh, about a minute. Now I'm rotating it so the BBs are on the bottom. Okay. I'm fairly confident that has surgitated all the way around and has scrubbed the inside. Now we're going to drain the water out of it. Slowly. I'm going to step over here to the side and drain it out. out. That's the bulk of the water. Now I need something to put the BBs into. For that, we're going to improvise this soda bottle. Now you can hang on to the BBs and use them several times. That's the idea. Yep, still warm. And I hold on the chain so I can tell. Okay, there ain't no more in there. Now I'll refill it up with water and just swish it out. Give it a good swish out. Pour that water out. There. Now I'll take it, like I said, put my little pill in it, fill it all the way to the very tippy top and put my lid on it, and it's ready to store. That's how I do it. I know everybody's got their own ways. But when you've lived out of a canteen, and a canteen cook set for a week or so in the field, that's your sole source of water carrier, they start to get a little funky after a while. You know, back flush you swallowing. Even though you're rinsing it out every time, even though you're drinking the thing till it's bone dry, and then you rinse it real good and you put your whatever in it, they start getting a little funky. And it helps just scrub them out. And I found that if I would simply fill the thing solid to the full top, it gave me less problem in the long term. Because a lot of times, the jobs I had, I would get to camp for 3 or 4 weekends in a row, and then I might not get to camp for 2 months. And so I just fill them to the top, because if I left them empty or half full, I had one that camp out where I remember I had left it just a little bit, like 1 finger's worth of water in there, and it must have been where I had, you know, been drinking and back flush a little bit or whatever, so it must have been from my mouth in there. And whenever I put them up on the shelf, it was like 3 months till I got to go again. I just grabbed off the shelf and filled it right back up and went. And I drank half of that canteen between then and bed. By 5 in the morning I was up and it was coming out both ends. And it was simply because when I finally got home and I took that canteen, went and rinsed out, and I dumped the water out of it, it was not clear water. It actually had little hunks of some sort of black stuff in it that had built in that canteen. And so that taught me right there, don't trust it. Fill it to the top so that when I pour it out, like I said, if it's been stored for a while, and I get it and I pour it into a clear glass, I can see there's particulate in there. Ooh, wait a minute, what's that? Should be perfectly clear water. But if there's kind of funky stuff floating in it, I know there's a problem, and I'll immediately go to Clorox or something like that, of putting about 4 drops of unscented, uncolored, pure bleach into it, and let it sit full with warm water, and let it just kill anything in there and sterilize the canteen. Hope you enjoy this, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And if you got any questions or things like that, please put them down there, and hit that like before you go, please, to feed the algorithm. I'd really appreciate it. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.